Hi everybody, this is Thea, and sorry I don't have makeup on. In fact, I'm not going to apologize because at this point, I usually don't wear makeup, so I might as well just be like, when I'm wearing makeup, be like, hey guys, yay, I'm wearing makeup. So, I'm not wearing makeup, but whatever. I am doing a new skin routine to get rid of acne, so whatever. Okay, so this video is kind of traumatizing for me. And, okay, I know it's I don't want people to think I'm crazy or nuts, but I'm just going to tell my story. So, I was raised Christian by my adoptive parents, and they taught me from a very young age about heaven and hell and stuff like that. Well, I got older, and I just hated my adoptive parents. I wanted to rebel and whatever. So, I stopped going to church, and hang on, sorry, my son lost his binky. I stopped going to church, and I started doing things that were, against my morals and my values, and, I don't know, I just kind of went down the wrong path, I'd say, when I turned 16. And then, when I got, to 18, 19, I started learning more about, paganism, because I had a friend who was very, very much a pagan, Norse pagan, I guess you'd say, and, or he was into Asatru, I think is how it's pronounced, and basically, I don't know if what he does is evil or not, but he basically was kind of that kind of person who, embraces the evil and likes it, and I'm just kind of, I don't know about that. Anyway, so my first paranormal experience was really scary. First of all, I lived up in a town in high school, I switched schools and moved somewhere far away. And I went to this school in the middle of nowhere, and I was at my best friend's house, and we had all just watched The Ring, so we were, in that spooky, hysteria type phase, and we started calling spirits, which never do that. I'm not kidding. It's not a joke. It's not funny. It's just stupid. Sheer stupidity. And so we started calling spirits, and apparently, a guy hung himself in that house, and also, there has obviously been things that are bad that have happened that people don't know about, or they're keeping it a secret. And basically, we started seeing stuff, and, we felt something really cold crawl up on top of us, and it was just the scariest. I just got the chills. Oh my gosh, I'm not kidding. I totally just got the chills. It was just the creepiest feeling ever. And they said that there was a ghost in their basement, and he never went upstairs, and they named him Max. And he was in a black trench coat. I know, typical, right? And they said he had darker skin. And, there you go, baby. Sorry, my son's right here, so. They said he had darker skin, and that he never went upstairs. Well, the next day, we didn't sleep that night. We just experienced too much stuff. And so, by the next morning, my parents came to pick me up, and I was waiting for them upstairs, and they had a hallway, and the hallway connected to the kitchen on both sides of the kitchen. So, if the hallway was right here, the kitchen was, right. Okay, that's a bad example. Basically, I turned around in the kitchen, and I looked down the hallway, I glanced, and I thought that I had seen my sister's little brother, I saw, someone move by. And I walked over to the other side of the kitchen to look down the hallway, and no one was there. And I was like, wow, that was creepy, oh my gosh, that's creepy. And then when I had realized, someone had been standing there, I walked over, and I thought, well, maybe it's my friend's mom, or maybe it's my friend, who knows. So I went and I looked and no one was there. And I was just like, wow, this is super creepy. And so I yelled down the stairs where my friend's room was. And I was like, hey, where are you? Where are you? What are you doing? And they were like, we're down here. We're coming up. And I was just like, whoa, like, I just saw something. And so I told them when they came up the stairs, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I totally just saw something. And, like, their faces just, like, their jaws dropped. They were just like, what? Like, they were like, what did you see? And I was like, well, I was in the kitchen, and I turned around, and I glanced, and I saw a shadow move by, and I thought it was one of you guys. And then I went down the hall, and no one was there. And they're like, oh my gosh, was it Max? And I was like, I don't know. It was, tall like your brother, so I don't know. I thought it was your brother. And so they're like, wow, he never comes upstairs. He's never left the basement. That's, like, really bad, really creepy. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, that's really scary, So I was just like, that's creepy, but whatever, at least it's not at my house, So I ended up going, and my dad picked me up, and we drove away. Well, later they told me that when we were pulling out of the driveway, they saw Max just standing at the end of the driveway watching me leave, which is really creepy. And it just freaked me the fuck out. So later, like the next few days later, my friend came over to my house, and we were talking about the experience, and suddenly, out of the forest, because I lived in the middle of the woods, a coyote just, like, came out, and it just stood there, and just froze, and stared at us while we were talking about this certain subject, go figure, and I yelled at it, I was like, hey, and it just was still standing there, just freeze, staring at us, and I was like, I started walking towards it, and it just stayed in that same position, and I was like, what the heck? And so then I howled at it, I woofed at it, we both, like, made noises towards it, and it just stayed there. It was really creepy. And then suddenly, I was like, this is, like, really creepy, and then my friend yelled, Max! And the coyote went, and then ran off into the forest, and I was just like, what was that about? Like, what, did that spirit, like, possess the dog for a minute? Like, what the fuck is going on? So, that was the first time I've ever experienced anything kind of paranormal, and weird. Just weird, So, later, I moved into I was adopted, so my oldest sister's house for my adoptive side of the family, and she's like the black sheep, and she's crazy. And I realized that her house had, like, a lot of negativity, and I didn't know, but as far as I know, she was doing, like, hardcore drugs behind our back, and she has lots of mental problems. I don't know. Anyway, so I was at her house, and she got a boyfriend. And this boyfriend and his son were priorly involved in paganism and witchcraft type stuff. And his son was really into it, and he kind of explained a lot to me. This is the friend I was talking about. Well, anyway, my sister ended up going crazy. I'm not kidding. Like, this is a true story. And she ended up pulling a gun on her boyfriend and accusing him of being nuts or whatever. She was just crazy. I think she was on drugs. And basically kicked them out of the house at some point after, like, a year and a half of them living there or something. Well, anyway, so I realized there was so much negativity in the house, and she ended up, like, turning her anger and frustration on me because her boyfriend was gone, and she just was crazy. She was on drugs and stuff. And so what she would do is every time that she hated someone, she'd make them go live in the basement, in this really nice basement in this huge mansion house type thing. And so I was living in the basement, and I was sitting there, and I was like, like, maybe she's, like, possessed or something, because I've never seen anyone act out in this fashion ever. Like, you only see this in movies. Like, I was like, this is so weird. So, I sat there, and because of my Christian background, I prayed for her, and then I was like, maybe if I call spirits or something, maybe if there is something in the house, it'll show itself. And I don't want it here. I'm tired of it being here. And I was frustrated. I was like, if it is possessing her or oppressing her, if it's a demon or a poltergeist or whatever, I want to tell it to fuck off, So I was literally sitting on my bed, and it freaks me out now so much because this was like the real experience that I had by myself for the first time, and it was really scary. I was sitting on my bed, and I drew a pentagram on a piece of paper and a cross next to it. And I can see it like it was yesterday. Like, I have, like, really good memory or something where it like flashes back and I'm there. And I was just sitting on the bed, and I had written it, and I said, "Why are you here? If you're here, show yourself," type of thing. And suddenly, like right after I had said that, I'm not even kidding, a big picture frame that I had with it was like a Chinese word with like a little rock with the symbol for the word, like love or something, flew out from the wall and dropped onto the ground. I'm not kidding. This is a true fucking story. I'm not exaggerating. I saw it with my own eyes, and it was so scary. Ugh, I'm getting chills just thinking about it again. Ugh, like seriously, I'm getting goosebumps. If you guys can see, I'm getting goosebumps. Okay, so I was in shock. I couldn't believe that actually something happened, because the thing that happened at my friend's house, I was just kind of like, oh, there must have been a logical explanation. There was no logical explanation. I mean, it was paranormal, 100%. And from that day on, I didn't sleep. Like, I was horrified. My sister was abusive and manipulative and on drugs and crazy, and in the end, I just assumed that she was probably possessed or oppressed by some kind of demon. Or multiple, for all I know. Me leaving her house ended in me getting a restraining order on her because she tried to frickin' murder me. She's psycho. And I haven't talked to her since. And that was like 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago. Anyway, so that was my first paranormal experience by myself, which was horrifying. And I know that sounds kind of lame, but when you're in that moment and a picture just flies off the wall, like, by itself, levitating, and then just drops and shatters, it's really creepy. Well, anyway, I kept the little Chinese rock, okay, that was from that moment, because I kept it for myself, because I couldn't believe that I had actually experienced it. I thought that maybe I was going crazy or something. Well, did you lose your binky? Yeah. So, anyway, later I started, diving into this paranormal stuff because I was like, wow, I'm actually experiencing stuff. I actually believe it now. Like, I actually believe it because I experienced it, type of thing. So I started studying paganism and witchcraft and stuff like that, and paranormal stuff, and I started watching Paranormal State a lot, if you've ever seen that TV show. And I learned a lot from it, and I learned a lot from stuff about Lorraine Warren and all that kind of stuff, and hauntings and stuff. And it kind of brought a new light into the fact that if you ignore it, you probably won't experience it. Well, I really enjoyed watching lots of horror movies and stuff that involved that, and I feel like even watching those things can bring those things into your life, which is not good, I feel. Well, anyway, here, Tristan, come on. Here you go. Here's your pinky. Anyway, so my next experience was years later, and it was last year. And I've had experiences off and on, like, when I had cats, they would just be looking at something that I couldn't see. Like, they'd just be, like, staring, and I was just like, oh my gosh, my place is haunted, or whatever. For the past few years, you know, I've had little tiny things happen, noises, stuff like that, but I just ignore them, because I'm just like, oh, it's probably a logical explanation. I'm not going to freak myself out for no reason. Well, last year, I was living down by Portland, Oregon, and I was open to that kind of stuff because my friend lived down there who was the Norse pagan person who had taught me about all this stuff. And here, honey. He and I had like an off and on type of a relationship dealio, and it just was shitty. Anyway, so we wanted to get together, and then it didn't work out, and I was just like, whatever, fuck you. But we still stayed friends, and now we're not friends, but back then we were. And so I was at my apartment, and I didn't have a table, so his family offered to give me a table. Little do I know, they gave me a table with tons of, like, Norse pagan signs on it that they actually use for rituals and witchcraft, which I didn't think about at the time would be a problem. I just thought, oh, I just want a table, I'll put a tablecloth over it, that's kind of weird. Well, later I told them to take the table away because I didn't want to associate myself with them because they, well, not they, but he pissed me off. And I was just like, get out of my life, I don't like you, you're a jerk off. Well, since he was in my life, I felt like he had lots of negativity, and I felt that he was probably possessed or oppressed by something because I have had experiences with that individual who either he has like multiple personalities or there's actually other spirits inside of him, which is really weird and far out, right? But in his mind, he believes it, you know. So anyway, really weird stuff started happening to me last year down there. Here, honey. Here you go. Here you go. Here you go. He loves his binky. So, I was down there, and my first experience was, I was 100% sober, and I was sitting on my bed, and I saw something walk out of the mirror, and I know this sounds freaking crazy, but I saw like a creature type thing walk out of the mirror, and hiss at me, and then disappear. And I've drawn it, what it looks like. I don't know if it was a poltergeist, a demon, some kind of spirit creature thing. I don't freaking know. But it was when that table was in my house. And so I figured that that table had some kind of evilness to it maybe, or had a portal. I don't freaking know. You know, I watch TV. I learn this stuff from television and reading. How the hell am I supposed to know what the fuck this thing is? So I thought I was going crazy. Well, later in this last year, when I lived down there, I was washing my dishes, you know, just washing the dishes, and I looked up, and this is when the table was gone, and I looked up, and because I had taken a shower and my apartment was really small, the whole place had fogged up. Well, I looked up, and there was a huge handprint on the wall, or on the window, straight in front of me. Like, the window was way over on the other side of the room, and it was a huge handprint just on the wall, and it had sharp ends, like claws, and it was huge. Like, if this is my hand, it went up to, like, here, and I was just like, what the hell is that? Like, it had formed in front of me, and it freaked me out, and I figured that it must have been because of that table, or that this person had cursed me, or the thing that was connected to him started to connect to me. I don't freaking know. Anyway, so I started, trying to study that stuff more, and I watched a lot of Paranormal State and stuff like that to try to, like, learn more about it. But I feel like that was attracting more of it to me, and I don't like that stuff now, because I thought it wasn't real, but it is real. And so I kind of was in the moment, and I walked over to the handprint, and I put my handprint next to it on the glass, because it was so much bigger than mine, and I do have a picture of this for, like, proof that it is real. So I will, like, put a link to the photo. I'll find the photo. It's somewhere in all my pictures. And I will put a link to the photo so you guys can all see that this was legit. Anyway, so here you go, honey. In the moment, right then, I kind of backed up and just was staring at it. I was just like, how the hell is this going on? Like, this can't be real. I must be losing my mind. Right then, there was a big boom, like, boom, and it scared the shit out of me. And I was just like, what the fuck was that, right? Well, I walk over to my room, and I don't know what the boom was. I still don't know to this day. It was just like a big crashing noise it was more of a boom, like a thunk, like if someone jumped off the bed. And I walk into my room, and my closet was over on the other end of the room, and I looked over, and all of the clothes that were on top just flew out of my closet onto the ground, and I'm not fucking kidding. I was just like, what the fuck is going on? And so I just went over to my bed, and I just sat there, and I was just like, oh my gosh. Either this house is haunted, I'm haunted, something's haunted, and I don't fucking like this shit. Well, later, a few months later, I was sleeping in bed, and I had woken up, and I opened my eyes, and I saw the image of a man standing decently close to the bed, like, not at the edge of the bed, but, like, more over by the door, like, in between the door and my bed. And I closed my eyes again, and then I opened my eyes, and it was gone, and so I thought someone was in my apartment, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, what the fuck, I just saw a shadow of someone. So I really quickly turned on the light, and was like, like, really scared, and so I had a knife under my bed, so I grabbed the knife, and I went to my bathroom in my apartment, and I walked around with it, and no one was there. That was the first time I've ever experienced something that close to me, and watching me, it felt like. It just was really, really violating feeling, and I really didn't like it, and I'm getting chills just... It freaks me out, guys. Like, I'm not kidding. This really happened. I'm going to post this video as a part 1 and make a part 2 because the video is getting long.